Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Perfect Facades. Dwayne Blackwell had built his life on precision. At 38, he commanded respect in every room he entered. Whether it was the boardroom of his private security firm, the garage where he restored vintage motorcycles, or the pristine suburban home where he'd raised his daughter for 9 years. His steel-gray eyes missed nothing, a trait that had served him well during his time in military intelligence before he'd started Blackwell Securities. Those same eyes now watched his wife Claire Santos Blackwell through the kitchen window as she tended to her garden, her 8-month pregnant belly making her movements careful and deliberate. They'd met 12 years ago when she was a struggling art student and he was fresh out of the service, hungry to build something meaningful. She'd been everything he thought he wanted: beautiful, artistic, seemingly devoted to family. "Dad, can we go see Mom's paintings in the studio?" 9-year-old Emma Blackwell asked, tugging at his sleeve. Emma had inherited his observational skills and Claire's artistic eye, creating an unusually perceptive child who often noticed things adults missed. "Later, sweetheart. Your mother needs rest before the baby comes." Dwayne ruffled his daughter's dark hair, identical to his own. Emma was his pride, sharp, loyal, and unafraid to speak her mind. Claire had been acting strange lately, distant in ways that went beyond pregnancy. Phone calls that ended abruptly when he entered rooms, new friends she'd met at prenatal yoga, but never introduced him to, and an odd defensiveness about her art studio that she'd converted from the guest house 6 months ago. Dwayne's instincts, honed by years of investigating corporate espionage and personal betrayals for his clients, whispered warnings he'd chosen to ignore. The contractions started at 3 a.m. on a rain-soaked Tuesday. Claire's grip on his hand was fierce as they rushed to Mercy General. Emma's staying with his sister Merle Blackwell for the night. Labor was long and difficult, lasting nearly 18 hours. During those endless hours in the waiting room, Dwayne found himself studying Claire's face during her brief moments of rest, searching for something he couldn't name. "It's a boy," Dr. Patricia Vance announced as she emerged from the delivery room, exhaustion evident in her voice. "Both mother and baby are healthy. You can see them shortly." Dwayne felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. A son, someone to carry on the Blackwell name, to teach everything he knew about strength, loyalty, and never showing weakness to those who might exploit it. Chapter 2. The Innocent Eye. The next morning, Dwayne picked up Emma from Merle's house. His sister, a stern woman who'd never married and devoted herself to her career as a forensic accountant, studied his face with the same analytical intensity that ran in their family. "You look like hell, Dwayne. When's the last time you slept?" Merle handed him a cup of black coffee, strong enough to wake the dead. "Been at the hospital. Claire had the baby last night, a boy." He should have felt more joy saying those words, but something hollow echoed in his chest. Emma's face lit up with genuine excitement. "Can we go see him?" "And Mom, that's the plan. Get your things." The drive to Mercy General was filled with Emma's chatter about baby names and how she'd teach her little brother to draw. Dwayne found himself only half listening, his mind churning through fragments of suspicion he'd suppressed for months. Claire's sudden interest in ethnic art 6 months ago, the way she'd started working out at a gym across town instead of their usual place, how she'd become protective of her phone, taking it everywhere, even to the bathroom. At the hospital, they navigated the maze of corridors to the maternity ward. Room 314 was painted in soft pastels, morning sunlight streaming through the windows. Claire sat propped up in bed, looking radiant despite her exhaustion. In her arms was a bundle wrapped in blue blankets. "Emma, Dwayne, come meet your son." Claire's smile seemed forced, her eyes not quite meeting Dwayne's as they approached. Emma practically bounced on her toes as she looked at the baby. "He's so small. What are we going to name him?" "We'll figure that out," Dwayne said, extending his arms. "Can I hold him?" Claire hesitated for just a moment, but it was enough for Dwayne to notice. When she finally handed over the infant, Dwayne looked down at his supposed son for the first time. The baby had Claire's delicate features, but something was wrong. The skin tone was darker than either of his parents, and the facial structure was distinctly different. Most telling were the eyes. When they opened briefly, they were a deep brown, almost black, nothing like Dwayne's gray or Claire's green. Emma stood on her tiptoes to get a better look, and Dwayne watched his daughter's expression change. Her artistic eye, trained to notice color and proportion, caught what any adult might rationalize away. Her face went pale, and she tugged urgently at Dwayne's sleeve. "Dad, can I talk to you outside? Right now?" Claire's face tightened. "Emma, don't you want to hold your brother?" "In a minute, Mom." Emma's voice was steady, but Dwayne could see the confusion and something like fear in her eyes. They stepped into the hallway, Emma pulling him away from the room until they were out of earshot. "Dad, didn't you notice? That baby is—" Emma struggled for words, then whispered, "That's not your baby. He doesn't look like us at all." Dwayne felt the world tilt. His daughter's innocent observation confirmed what his subconscious had already registered. 9 years old, and Emma had spotted what he'd been too emotionally invested to see immediately. "Are you sure, sweetheart?" "I'm positive. Remember when I drew that family portrait last month? I pay attention to faces, Dad. That baby, he looks like someone else." Dwayne's hands began to shake, not with fear, but with a cold rage that started in his chest and spread through his entire body. In that sterile hospital corridor, watching his daughter's concerned face, something fundamental shifted inside him. The man who'd built his reputation on loyalty, who'd provided for his family without question, who'd trusted completely, felt that trust shatter into razor-sharp fragments. "Go back in there and act normal," he told Emma quietly. "Don't say anything to your mother. Can you do that for me?" Emma nodded solemnly. "What are you going to do?" Dwayne pulled out his phone, his military training kicking in to suppress the emotional chaos and focus on necessary action. "I'm going to find out the truth." Chapter 3. The Call. They returned to the room where Claire was adjusting her hospital gown, avoiding eye contact. The baby slept peacefully, oblivious to the storm gathering around him. "He's beautiful," Dwayne said, his voice carefully neutral as he handed the infant back to Claire. "Have you thought about names?" "I was thinking maybe Marcus." Claire's voice was barely above a whisper. "Marcus." Dwayne repeated the name, filing away every detail of Claire's behavior. "That's a strong name." Emma climbed onto the visitor's chair, her face carefully composed despite what she'd just revealed. At 9 years old, she already understood the gravity of adult secrets. "I should call my office, let them know I'll be taking paternity leave," Dwayne said, pulling out his phone. "I'll be right back." He stepped in the hallway and dialed a number he'd memorized years ago, but never thought he'd need to use personally. Blackwell Securities, Stanford Lindsay speaking. Stanford was his head of investigations, a former police detective with 20 years of experience uncovering lies for a living. They'd worked together for 5 years, and Stanford had never failed to deliver truth, no matter how ugly. "Stan, it's Dwayne. I need you to drop everything and start a full investigation." "Boss, I thought you were at the hospital with a new baby. Everything okay?" "No, everything is not okay." Dwayne's voice was ice cold. "I need you to investigate my wife. Full background, recent activities, phone records, financial transactions, everything. And I need it fast." There was a pause. Stanford had been around long enough to know that when Dwayne Blackwell used that tone, someone was about to have their world destroyed. "How fast are we talking?" 24 hours for preliminary findings. "And Stan, this stays between us until I decide otherwise." "Understood. What's the priority focus?" Dwayne looked back toward Claire's room, where he could hear her talking softly to Emma about the baby. "Infidelity. I need to know who, when, where, and how long it's been going on. I'll start immediately. Anything else?" "Yeah. Run a genetic marker prediction on the baby if you can get the information. I have reason to believe he's not mine." Another pause. "Jesus, Dwayne. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just give me facts." Dwayne ended the call and stood in the hallway for a moment, letting the rage build and then crystallize into something harder and more dangerous: purpose. He'd built his business on the principle that truth always surfaced and betrayal always had consequences. He just never expected to apply those principles to his own family. When he returned to the room, Claire looked up nervously. "Everything okay with work?" "Just arranging time off to be with my family," Dwayne replied, and the word family tasted like ash in his mouth. Over the next hour, he watched Claire interact with the baby and Emma, cataloging every gesture, every word, every micro-expression. His daughter, bless her observant heart, played her part perfectly, cooing over the baby while shooting meaningful glances at her father. A nurse came in to check on Claire and the baby. "Mr. Blackwell, would you like to hold your son while I examine Mom?" "Of course." Dwayne took the infant again, this time studying every feature clinically. The baby's hair was darker and cullier than either parent. The nose was broader, the lips fuller. Even the way the baby's fingers curled was different from Emma's baby pictures. "He's going to be a heartbreaker," the nurse said cheerfully. "Look at those beautiful features." Claire's face went white, and Dwayne saw her hands tremble as she adjusted her blanket. "Yes," Dwayne said quietly, "he certainly has distinctive features." After the nurse left, an uncomfortable silence settled over the room. Emma broke it by announcing she was hungry, which gave Dwayne an excuse to take her to the cafeteria. "Dad, I can tell you're really angry," Emma said as they sat with sandwiches neither of them was eating. "I'm not angry at you, sweetheart. You did the right thing telling me what you noticed." "What happens now?" Dwayne looked at his daughter, his real daughter, the one person in this mess he could trust completely. "Now I find out exactly what's been going on, and then I decide what to do about it. Will you and Mom get divorced?" The question hit him like a physical blow, but he kept his expression calm. "I don't know yet, but I promise you this. Whatever happens, you'll be protected. You'll always be my priority." Emma nodded, then asked with the directness only children possessed, "Are you going to hurt the people who hurt us?" Dwayne set down his sandwich and looked directly into his daughter's eyes that were exactly like his own. "Emma, when someone betrays your trust, when they lie to you and try to make you believe something that isn't true, what do you think should happen to them?" "They should face consequences," Emma said without hesitation. "That's right. They should face consequences." As they returned to Claire's room, Dwayne's phone buzzed with a text from Stanford. "Found something already. Call me when you can." Dwayne felt a cold smile touch his lips. The investigation was just beginning, but he already knew how it would end. Claire had made the mistake of betraying a man who'd built his career on destroying people who thought they could lie and get away with it. She was about to learn that Dwayne Blackwell never forgave, and he never forgot. Chapter 4: Unraveling Threads. Dwayne left Claire and the baby at the hospital under the pretense of getting Emma settled and handling work emergencies. The drive home was silent except for Emma's occasional questions about what would happen next, to which Dwayne gave carefully measured answers. He'd learned long ago that information was power, and even with his daughter, he shared only what she needed to know. Their house, a sprawling ranch-style home in an upscale suburb, felt different now. What had once been a sanctuary now felt like a crime scene waiting to be investigated. Dwayne sent Emma to her room to rest while he headed to his home office, a soundproofed room where he handled sensitive client matters. Stanford answered on the first ring. "Boss, you're not going to like what I found." "Tell me." I started with her phone records since those are easiest to access. Claire's been having regular communication with someone named Jamal Fuller for the past 8 months. Calls, texts, the works. The frequency increased dramatically around the time the baby would have been conceived. Dwayne's grip on the phone tightened. "Tell me about Fuller." 35 years old, African-American, works as a personal trainer at Elite Fitness across town. That's the gym Claire started going to 6 months ago. He's divorced, no kids, clean criminal record. Lives in an apartment complex about 10 minutes from a gym. 8 months, Dwayne repeated. That timing fits. There's more. I pulled security footage from the gym's parking lot for the past month before you called. Claire's been meeting Fuller there 3 times a week, but they're not always going inside. Sometimes they sit in his car for an hour. Sometimes they leave together. Dwayne felt the familiar cold calculation settling over him. Where do they go? Still working on that, but I found something interesting. Fuller has a key to a storage unit across town. Rented it 4 months ago, pays in cash. I'm thinking it might be where they've been meeting. Good work. What else? I'm running a deeper background on Fuller, looking into his finances, his connections, his habits. I should have a full profile by tonight. But Dwayne, Stanford's voice carried a note of concern. What are you planning to do with this information? I'm planning to make sure that the truth comes out and that there are appropriate consequences for everyone involved. That's what I'm afraid of. Look, I know you're hurting, but don't do anything that's going to land you in prison. Dwayne's laugh was devoid of humor. Stanford, I've spent 5 years helping clients destroy people who betrayed them, and I've never left fingerprints. I'm not about to start getting sloppy now. After ending the call, Dwayne sat in his office chair, staring at the wall covered with military commendations and business achievements. Everything he'd built, everything he believed in, had been built on a foundation of lies. But lies could be weaponized just as effectively as truth. Emma appeared in his doorway, holding her favorite stuffed animal. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. If someone lies to you for a long time and you find out, does that mean everything they ever said was a lie? The question hit deeper than she probably intended. Not everything, but it means you can never trust them again. And once trust is broken, it can never be truly repaired. Emma nodded solemnly. I don't think I want to go back to the hospital today. You don't have to. We'll visit your mother tomorrow. That evening, while Emma slept, Dwayne drove to Elite Fitness. The gym was closed, but he sat in his car across the street, studying the building and the surrounding area. His phone rang. Stanford again. I've got more information on Fuller. This guy's got some interesting connections, such as he's got a side business, personal training for wealthy women, if you know what I mean. I found at least 3 other married clients who he's been unusually close to. One of them is Dr. Patricia Vance. Dwayne felt a chill. The doctor who delivered the baby? The same. And get this, Fuller's been making deposits into a separate bank account, large amounts in cash for the past year. My guess is he's been running some kind of operation targeting married women. A predator. More than that, I think he specifically targets women with wealthy husbands. Claire fits the profile perfectly. Dwayne ended the call and continued watching the gym. Plans were forming in his mind, not just for revenge, but for complete destruction. If Fuller was targeting multiple women, then there were multiple husbands who deserved to know the truth. And if Dr. Vance was involved, then there were professional ethics violations that could destroy her career. But first, he needed to confirm paternity. Chapter 5. The Trap Sets. The next morning, Dwayne returned to the hospital with Emma, armed with new information and a carefully constructed plan. He'd spent the night researching DNA testing procedures and making arrangements that would give him leverage over everyone involved in his wife's betrayal. Claire looked nervous when they entered her room. The baby, whom she'd apparently decided to name Marcus without his input, was sleeping in a bassinet beside her bed. How did you sleep? Dwayne asked, kissing her forehead in what appeared to be a loving gesture. Fine. The nurses said we can probably go home tomorrow. That's wonderful. Dwayne pulled out his phone. I've been thinking about the birth announcement. We should take some professional photos, document this moment for our family. Claire's face tightened almost imperceptibly. Maybe we should wait until we're home. I don't look my best right now. You look beautiful. Besides, I already called a photographer. He specializes in newborn portraits, very discreet, comes highly recommended. Dwayne showed her his phone screen, which displayed the contact information for a man who was actually one of his investigators. He'll be here this afternoon. While Claire tried to find reasons to object, Emma played with the baby, her young face a perfect mask of innocence despite knowing the terrible truth. The photographer will need to document the baby's features carefully, Dwayne continued. Apparently, they use high-resolution cameras to capture every detail. It's amazing what modern technology can reveal about family resemblances. Claire went pale. Maybe we should just wait. Claire, this is our son's first day of life being documented. It's important. Dwayne's voice carried just enough insistence to make refusing seem suspicious. Dr. Vance entered the room for a routine check, and Dwayne watched her interaction with Claire carefully. There was a familiarity there that went beyond professional courtesy. Shared glances, a touch that lingered too long on Claire's shoulder. How are we feeling today? Dr. Vance asked. Ready to go home? Claire replied quickly. Well, everything looks good. We'll just need to complete the birth certificate paperwork and run a few final tests. Dr. Vance glanced at Dwayne. Mr. Blackwell, we'll need your signature on several documents. Of course. Actually, Doctor, I have a question about genetic testing. Is it standard procedure to run DNA verification for birth certificates? Dr. Vance's professional smile faltered slightly. That's not typically necessary unless there are specific medical concerns. I'm just thinking about family medical history, hereditary conditions, that sort of thing. I want to make sure we have complete records for Marcus's future healthcare needs. We can discuss that if you'd like, but it's not urgent. Dwayne nodded agreeably, but he noticed how Dr. Vance and Claire exchanged another glance. The doctor left quickly after that, and Claire remained silent for several minutes. Dwayne, she finally said, there's something I need to tell you. Emma looked up from the baby, her eyes wide. Dwayne felt his pulse quicken, but kept his expression neutral. What is it? Claire's mouth opened and closed several times before she found her voice. I haven't been completely honest about everything. About what? For a moment, it seemed like she might confess everything. But then her phone buzzed with a text message, and Dwayne saw her glance at it and make a decision. The pregnancy was harder than I let on. I didn't want you to worry. It was a lie, and they both knew it. But Dwayne simply nodded and squeezed her hand. You can tell me anything, Claire. You know that. That afternoon, the photographer arrived. Actually, Julius Suarez, one of Dwayne's most skilled investigators. He carried professional camera equipment and charmed Claire with talk about capturing the perfect family moment. I'll need several shots of the baby alone, Julius explained, setting up his equipment. Close-ups that capture all his unique features. Parents are always amazed at how much detail these high-resolution images show. As Julius worked, taking dozens of photos from every angle, Dwayne noticed Claire becoming increasingly agitated. When Julius asked for family shots, placing Dwayne next to the baby, Claire interrupted. Maybe we should do this later. Marcus seems fussy. He looks perfectly content to me, Dwayne replied. Let's get these done now. The session lasted an hour, with Julius capturing every detail that would later be analyzed by experts. Before leaving, he handed Dwayne a card. I'll have the proofs ready by tomorrow. These are going to be beautiful family portraits. After Julius left, Dwayne excused himself to make phone calls. In the hallway, he dialed Stanford. How's our investigation progressing? I've got everything you need. Fuller's been playing this game for over 2 years. I've identified 5 other women he's been involved with, all married to wealthy men. Dr. Vance has been covering for him, falsifying medical records, helping establish false paternity. It's a whole operation. Evidence, photos, financial records, communications. I've also been monitoring Fuller's movements. He's planning to meet Claire tonight. Tonight? She's still in the hospital. He's coming here. I followed him to the parking garage 20 minutes ago. He's been sitting in his car, waiting. Dwayne felt a cold smile spread across his face. Perfect. Time to accelerate our timeline. Chapter 6, Convergence. Dwayne returned to Claire's room to find her checking her phone nervously. Emma was napping in the visitor's chair, exhausted by the emotional weight she'd been carrying. I need to run home and get some things for tomorrow, Dwayne announced. Will you be okay here with Emma? Actually, Claire said quickly, maybe you should take Emma home. She looks tired, and I could use some rest. Are you sure? I don't like leaving you alone. I'll be fine. The nurses check on me every hour. Dwayne pretended to consider this. Okay, but I'll be back later tonight to check on you. He gently woke Emma and helped her gather her things. As they prepared to leave, he kissed Claire goodbye, noting how she avoided eye contact. Rest well. I'll see you tonight. In the parking garage, Dwayne spotted Fuller's car immediately, a black Mustang parked in a corner spot with tinted windows. He drove Emma home and called his sister Merle to come stay with her. I need you to keep Emma tonight, he told Merle when she arrived. There's something I need to handle. Merle studied his face with her sharp accountant's eye. This is about Claire, isn't it? Yes. What did she do? What do you think she did? Merle's expression hardened. That foolish girl. She has no idea who she's dealing with, does she? No, she doesn't. But she's about to learn. Dwayne returned to the hospital around 9 p.m., but instead of going to Claire's room, he positioned himself in the parking garage with a clear view of Fuller's car. He didn't have to wait long. At 9:30, he watched Claire emerge from the hospital's side entrance, the same exit used by staff to avoid the main lobby. She was still in her hospital gown, but had thrown a coat over it. She moved carefully, obviously still recovering from childbirth, but her destination was clear. She reached Fuller's car and got into the passenger seat. Dwayne started his engine and followed at a distance as they drove to a 24-hour diner across town. Through the window, he watched them sit in a corner booth, their conversation intense and clearly emotional. Claire was crying. Fuller was holding her hands across the table. Dwayne called Stanford. "Are you recording this?" "Every word. I've got directional microphones and cameras set up. They're discussing what to do now that you're suspicious. And Fuller wants her to leave you. Take the baby and disappear with him. But Claire's afraid. She knows you too well. She's telling him about your military background, your business, how you destroy people for a living." Smart woman. What's Fuller's response? He's telling her it doesn't matter, that you can't touch them if they disappear. He's got it all planned out. New identities, a place to go. Apparently, he's done this before. Dwayne felt his anger crystallize into something harder and more focused. "Give me everything you have on his previous disappearances. I want to know every detail of his operation." "Already on it. Boss, they're planning to leave tomorrow night. Claire's going to fake a postpartum emergency, get discharged early, and meet him." "Perfect. That gives us 24 hours to prepare a welcome committee." Dwayne watched as Fuller and Claire said their goodbyes in the diner parking lot. The kiss they shared was long and desperate, the embrace of two people who thought they were about to escape consequences. They had no idea that Dwayne Blackwell had never let anyone escape consequences in his life, and he wasn't about to start now. As he followed Claire back to the hospital, Dwayne's phone rang. It was Julius with the photo analysis results. "No question about it, boss. That baby isn't yours. Facial structure, skin tone, hair texture. Everything points to Fuller being the father. I've got comparison photos that make it undeniable." "Good. Add those to the evidence file." Dwayne watched Claire slip back into the hospital, probably thinking she'd been clever. She had no idea that her husband had just watched her seal her own fate. Tomorrow would be a very interesting day. Chapter 7. The Web Titans. Dawn broke gray and cold as Dwayne sat in his office, surrounded by the fruits of Stanford's investigation. Photos, financial records, phone logs, and surveillance footage covered every surface. The evidence painted a clear picture of betrayal that went deeper than simple adultery. Jamal Fuller wasn't just a predator. He was a professional con artist who specialized in targeting wealthy married women. Over the past 3 years, he'd seduced 5 women, gotten 2 of them pregnant, and then blackmailed their husbands for silence money before disappearing with his victims. Dr. Patricia Vance had been providing medical cover, falsifying records and paternity information in exchange for a cut of the profits. Claire had been their latest mark, but they'd made a critical error in targeting Dwayne Blackwell. "Everything's in place," Stanford reported via phone. "Fuller thinks he's meeting Claire tonight at the storage unit to collect their escape fund and finalize plans. He has no idea we've been monitoring their communications." "And Dr. Vance?" "She's scheduled for a meeting with the hospital's ethics board tomorrow morning. Seems someone submitted an anonymous complaint about falsified medical records, with substantial evidence attached." Dwayne smiled coldly. "Excellent. What about the other families? I've prepared information packets for all of Fuller's previous victims' husbands. They'll receive them this afternoon, photos, evidence, everything they need to understand what happened to their families." "Good. Make sure each packet includes Fuller's current location and tonight's meeting details." Emma appeared in his office doorway, still in her pajamas. "Dad, what are you doing?" Dwayne quickly covered the most damaging photos. "Just work, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" "Not really. I keep thinking about Mom and the baby." Emma climbed into the chair across from his desk. "Are you going to forgive her?" The question hung in the air between them. Dwayne studied his daughter's face. So young, but already learning that the world was full of people who would lie and betray those who trusted them. "Emma, What would you do if someone stole something precious from you, then lied about it for months? I'd want them to give it back and say they were sorry. But what if they couldn't give it back? What if the thing they stole was time and trust and the feeling of being safe in your own family? Emma considered this seriously. Then I guess I'd want them to face consequences. That's right. And sometimes consequences are the only way people learn not to hurt others. Merle arrived at noon to watch Emma while Dwayne handled business. His sister's farewell was characteristically blunt. Do what needs to be done, but don't leave evidence. At the hospital, Dwayne found Claire packing her things. The baby slept in his carrier, oblivious to the storm gathering around him. Ready to go home, Dwayne asked cheerfully. Yes, I can't wait to get out of here. Claire's nervousness was palpable. I've arranged for a car service to take you home. I have some urgent business to handle this afternoon, but I'll be back for dinner. Relief flashed across Claire's face. That's fine. I'll probably rest anyway. Dwayne helped load their things, noting how Claire kept checking her phone. When they reached the house, he made a show of settling her and the baby in their bedroom before announcing he had to leave. Take care of yourself, he said, kissing her forehead. I'll see you tonight. As soon as he left, Dwayne circled back and parked where he could watch the house. Within an hour, a taxi arrived. Claire emerged with a small bag and the baby, moving quickly despite her recent surgery. She was heading to the storage unit where Fuller waited, thinking they were about to start their new life together. They had no idea they were walking into a trap that had been months in the making. Chapter 8. The Hunters Become the Hunted. The storage facility was on the industrial side of town, a sprawling complex of metal buildings and narrow alleys that provided perfect cover for surveillance. Dwayne arrived first, positioning himself with a clear view of Unit 247 where Fuller had been meeting his victims. Stanford's voice crackled through his earpiece. Fuller's inside, waiting. I count 3 cars approaching from different directions. Looks like those other husbands got our message. Through his binoculars, Dwayne watched as a taxi pulled up to the storage unit. Claire got out, carrying the baby in a small bag. She looked around nervously before knocking on the metal door. Fuller opened it immediately, pulling her inside. Dwayne could see them through the partially opened door, embracing, talking rapidly, making final preparations for their escape. Phase 2, Dwayne said into his microphone. 3 cars converged on the storage facility. From the first emerged Marcus Cervantes, an oil executive whose wife had been Fuller's victim 8 months ago. From the second came Fritz Charles, a federal prosecutor whose marriage had imploded after Fuller's manipulation. The third car held Elliot Garrison, a former Marine whose wife had killed herself after Fuller abandoned her. These men had received Dwayne's evidence packets that afternoon. They'd learned the truth about their destroyed families, and they'd come for justice. Gentlemen, Dwayne said as they gathered around his position, the people who destroyed your families are in that unit, planning their next escape. Marcus Cervantes' face was carved from stone. My wife died in a car accident after Fuller left her. She was trying to drive to see him when she crashed. My kids lost their mother because of that bastard. For Charles cracked his knuckles. Fuller cost me my marriage, my kids' respect, and nearly my career. I want 5 minutes alone with him. Elliot Garrison said nothing, but his hands were steady and his eyes were cold. The look of a man who'd killed enemies of his country and wouldn't hesitate to kill enemies of his family. There's a back entrance, Dwayne explained. Stanford's been monitoring their communications. They're planning to leave in 30 minutes. Once they come out, they're going to find that their car won't start. Stanford made sure of that. When they're stranded and panicked, that's when we move. What about the baby? Marcus asked. The baby's innocent in this. We protect him at all costs. But Fuller and my wife. Dwayne's voice trailed off. They've made their choices. 28 minutes later, Fuller and Claire emerged from the storage unit. Claire carried the baby while Fuller loaded bags into his car. When he turned the key, nothing happened. Dwayne watched through his binoculars as Fuller tried the engine repeatedly, growing more agitated. Claire stood beside the car, bouncing the baby and looking around nervously. Now, Dwayne said. The 4 men emerged from the shadows simultaneously, surrounding Fuller's car. Claire screamed when she saw them, clutching the baby tighter. Hello, Jamal, Dwayne said pleasantly. I think it's time we had a conversation. Fuller's face went through several emotions: confusion, recognition, fear. I don't know what you're talking about, man. You're just escaping with my wife and the child you fathered while lying to my family for 8 months, Dwayne interrupted. Along with the money you've stolen from these other gentlemen's families. Claire looked between the men, finally understanding the scope of what was happening. Dwayne, please, I can explain. No explanations needed, Claire. We've been watching you for days. We know everything. Fritz Charles stepped forward, his prosecutor's voice carrying legal authority. Jamal Fuller, you're under arrest for fraud, extortion, and conspiracy. And Dr. Patricia Vance is being arrested at this very moment for falsifying medical records. Fuller tried to run, but Elliot Garrison moved with military precision, taking him down in seconds. You cost good people their families, Elliot said quietly. Now you're going to pay for it. Chapter 9. Justice Served Cold. The abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town had been Dwayne's backup location for sensitive client meetings. Soundproof, isolated, and completely off any official records. Now it served as a courtroom where real justice would be dispensed. Fuller sat zip-tied to a metal chair, his face swollen from Elliot's takedown. Claire sat nearby, holding the baby, her eyes wide with terror as she finally understood who her husband really was. Gentlemen, Dwayne addressed the other 3 husbands, we're here because the legal system failed us. Fuller would have gotten a few years in minimum security, and my wife would have gotten half my assets in divorce court. That's not justice. That's just bureaucracy. Marcus Cervantes paced like a caged animal. My wife died because of this bastard. My kids ask me every day why mommy had to go away. What am I supposed to tell them? You tell them, Dwayne replied, that the man who hurt their mother faced real consequences. Stanford had provided detailed financial records showing Fuller's operation. Over 3 years, he destroyed 7 families, stolen over $2 million in blackmail and settlements, and left a trail of broken homes and traumatized children. Claire, Dwayne said, turning to his wife, you've been very quiet. Don't you have anything to say? Claire's voice was barely a whisper. I never meant for this to happen. Jamal said he loved me, that we could have a life together. Shut up, Fuller snapped. Just shut up and don't say anything else. Dwayne smiled coldly. Actually, Jamal, I think Claire should tell us everything. How you approached her at the gym, how you made her feel special, how you convinced her to betray her family. I think these gentlemen would find it educational. Over the next hour, the full scope of Fuller's manipulation became clear. He'd targeted Claire specifically after researching Dwayne's business and wealth. The seduction had been calculated, designed to create maximum emotional dependence before revealing his true nature. The beautiful part, Fuller had bragged to Claire during one of their recorded conversations, is that by the time they figure out, we're gone and they're left dealing with the mess. But Fuller had miscalculated. He'd never encountered a man like Dwayne Blackwell. Here's what's going to happen, Dwayne announced. Fuller, you're going to sign a full confession detailing your operation, naming Dr. Vance as your accomplice, and providing bank account information for all the money you've stolen. That money is going to be returned to the families you've destroyed. And if I refuse? Dwayne nodded to Elliot, who had been maintaining his military bearing throughout the proceedings. Elliot here served 3 tours in Afghanistan. He's an expert in interrogation techniques that leave no permanent marks. How long do you think you'll last before you're begging to sign? Fuller's bravado crumbled. What about witness protection? I've got information on other operations. No deals, Fritz Charles interrupted. You're going to prison for a very long time, and we're going to make sure every inmate knows exactly what you did to families like theirs. As Fuller signed his confession, Dwayne turned to Claire. And you, my dear wife, what do you think your consequences should be? Claire was crying now, clutching the baby. Dwayne, please, I know I made mistakes, but... Mistakes? Dwayne's voice was deadly quiet. You destroyed our marriage, lied to my daughter, and tried to pass another man's child off as mine. Those aren't mistakes. Those are calculated betrayals. I'll do anything to make this right. There is no making this right, Claire. There's only consequences. Dwayne pulled out a legal document Stanford had prepared, Divorce papers. You're going to sign them, relinquishing all claims to marital assets, agreeing to supervise visitation with Emma only, and acknowledging that the child you're holding is not mine and therefore not entitled to any support from me. I'll have nothing. You'll have what you deserve, Marcus Cervantes said harshly, which is exactly nothing. Claire signed with shaking hands, her dreams of escape and new love crumbling around her. As dawn broke over the warehouse, Stanford arrived with two federal marshals, friends from his police days who specialized in making certain types of problems disappear permanently. Jamal Fuller, one of them, announced, "You're under arrest for interstate fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. The FBI has been very interested in your operation." As they led Fuller away, he looked back at Claire with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Blackwell." Dwayne's smile was colder than winter. "Yes, it is." 6 months later, Dwayne sat at his office reviewing the final reports on the Fuller case. Dr. Vance had lost her medical license and received a 5-year sentence for falsifying records. Fuller had been convicted on 17 counts and would spend the next 25 years in federal prison. The money he'd stolen had been recovered and returned to his victims. Emma knocked on his office door, now 10 years old and remarkably resilient after months of counseling and honest conversations about adult failures and consequences. "Dad, I finished my homework. Can we work on the motorcycle now?" "Absolutely." They'd been restoring a 1967 Harley together, a project that gave them time to talk through everything that had happened. Emma had handled the truth better than most adults would have. But then again, she was a Blackwell. "Dad," Emma said as they worked on the engine, "do you ever miss Mom?" Dwayne considered the question carefully. "I miss the person I thought she was. But that person never really existed. Will you ever get married again?" "Maybe someday. But whoever I marry will have to understand that you and I are a team, and nothing comes between family loyalty." Emma smiled. "I like that." Claire had moved across the country with her baby, supported by a small allowance that would end when the child turned 18. She'd sent letters asking for forgiveness, for second chances, for understanding. Dwayne had returned them all unopened. Some betrayals were unforgivable. Some consequences were permanent. And Dwayne Blackwell had never been a man who believed in second chances for those who crossed him. The motorcycle engine roared to life, and Emma cheered with delight. They had a good life together, built on truth, loyalty, and the understanding that strength came from never tolerating betrayal. It was a lesson Emma would carry with her for the rest of her life. And in the end, that was the most important legacy Dwayne could leave his daughter. The knowledge that loyalty was rewarded, betrayal